Okay, I guess we're gonna start with that. It's 4 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and call this regularly scheduled Carbon County School District 2 Board of Trustees meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Calvin Condit, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Calvin. Good job. Okay. I need approval of the agenda. Is this part of the encampment school thing, or is this something?
Yeah, that's
separate?
part of it.
Okay, all right. Whether I needed to amend it. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
It's moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, item 3A, presentations and recognitions, Saratoga's cross country.
Well, this is a portion of it. Trying to get everybody rounded up is like getting cattle out of the forest in the summer, but the three people we're missing as part of the championship team is Rywan Williams, Jaden Campbell, and Meredith Williams. There's two of them are at the student council today, and one of them's helping Grandpa move from Texas. So as you can see, we have a good representation of our program right here, though. We'll start with our boys. These three gentlemen here were all state performers for us. To be all state and cross country, have placed in the top 10 at state. Between the boys and girls this year, we had 7 out of the 20 all state performers, and we've never had that before. So big deal for us. On the boys' side, for the second year in a row, unfortunately, they've tied for the state championship and lost it on a tiebreaker. So they're going to be hungry next year. I know all three of these boys, Grant, Grady, and Calvin, are juniors, and I know that when they leave the program, they don't want to end up in a tie again. So we're looking forward to redeeming ourselves next year. Start with Calvin. Calvin was a 10th place finisher at state cross country. Grady is a 3-time state champion runner-up thanks to his brother. And Grant, who is a junior now, is a 3-time state champion. That hasn't happened. He's gonna have a big target on his back, but good luck for all those people trying to shoot that target down, because they're gonna have to dig pretty deep to beat him next year. And so I'm awful proud of the boys team, and again, we're out for, we're hungry next year. I know that. Then we'll start with the three girls here today. They're part of our state championship team. It's the first state championship on the girls' side that we had since 2009, and they dominated the cross country this year. And they're all back, and so we're really excited for them. And so we'll start with our 2 all-staters. I'll let them talk. Tell them, they talk all the time on the bus. It shouldn't be different, right? So we'll start with our junior.
Okay, well,
Tell me your place.
my plate. Okay, I got 4th, and I was our second runner behind Marilee. Marilee got 3rd, and she did super good. She's a sophomore. It was really fun. It was something new because I moved here this year. It was definitely an experience to remember because there was so much team bonding that happened the night before. It was crazy. We all built each other up, and it was really fun. Okay, go ahead.
I got 8th place.
Name.
What?
Name.
My name is Malai Scott. I'm a freshman, got 8th place. I just really love cross country because of all the people and like we all have a special love for each other. And the championship really meant a lot to me because it's special. And so I don't know.
I'm Aspen Sewell. I'm a freshman. I really enjoy cross country. Winning the state championship, it meant a lot because cross country is like, it's a lot of pain and hurt sometimes. And I think it means a lot to go through it with people that mean a lot to you, know that they're trying just as hard, like next to you. And it meant a lot to be able to work all season and be able to get the state championship and go together.
Calvin?
I don't know. Wish it would have turned out better. Yeah, it's cool to all stay 3 years. Just takes a lot of work. Glad to have this team. So 2 years been a little rough, really rough, but hopefully next year we can do it better. I like it because it's something different. Don't have to go get hit really hard by other people and you just go running. You just rely on yourself. I mean, you rely on your team to win it, but it's also yourself too and how much you have. And I just enjoy that part.
And as our coach, the hardest day of the year for me is not being able to be with them that Monday after state cross country. And so they talk about the pain involved with it, and there's a lot of dedication involved, and it's as most of us know, running is not that much fun. And they find a way to make it joyful, and they do compete for one another, and they do take a lot of pride in their school and one another. And I think that's what our program is built around, is that none of them want to let the other one down. And so they when it comes, we have a bunch of screwballs. I mean, you can see from this bunch right here, but when it comes to the state championship, it's just like everything else is forgotten. They're just a calm about them, and they're focused, and it just and it's because of what they said. They have a lot of love for one another, and the team building things that we do, that boys or girls, they don't want to let one program get ahead of the other one, and they don't want to let each other down. And so I'm awfully proud to work with them every single day, and thank them very much. Thank you for recognizing them. Thank our administration for what they do for all of our kids, and thank you athletes for making me awfully proud.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to go up there in the state and watch them. And for those of you that don't know, like at Wyoming Indian High School, it's pretty cool. They got all those runners lined up, and then there's this Indian dressed up in a white horse and red, white, and blue paint, and they take off after him down the hill chasing. It's all these white kids chasing an Indian. So it was kind of funny, but it's really cool, the spectacle up there and all those kids. And it was just a lot of fun to watch you guys personally up there, watch you boys and girls both. That was a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thanks, Rex. It was funny. It was really special. It was neat. And that boy was like an 8th grader. I've talked. Okay. Thank you. Next is item B, it's a new teachers here in the camp. Mr. Erickson.
First, welcome to Camden School. It's been a couple of years. We're glad to be able to host you again. And so we have 2 years worth of new staff to introduce to you. I'll start with Paul Switzer. He has taken over our BOAG program. And up there.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Switzer, and this is my 2nd year at encampment. We weren't able to do this introduction last year because of COVID and some stuff like that. Some of you may remember me. I started off in the district at Hannah 3 years ago, and I've been BOAG and FFA advisor at both schools in the district ever since. So thanks for having me, keeping me around this long.
I told them they didn't have to talk if they wanted to, but they could. So
We like it better if you do.
Okay, next is Daniel Greenwood, and he is our secondary science teacher.
Philip, I'm the encampment science department here. I teach everything except 8th grade science. Last year was my first year teaching anywhere, so it was at the first year challenges. I feel really lucky to be in this district because I got so much help from everyone at central office. Principal Erickson was awesome. I had to do student teaching while I was teaching. I was working on a master's degree in education as well that year, so it was a really hectic year, and I got a lot of support from everyone in here and also the other faculty at campus. I'm glad to be here. I hope to be here for many years.
Next, we have Catherine Munson, and she took over our family and consumer science.
Hi guys, for those of you who don't know, I graduated from Saratoga High School. And so it's awesome being back and like being able to help out in the valley where I got my education. So really pleased to be here. Thank you guys. And we're glad to host you today. Thanks.
It's her students that made your snacks for you. And last, we have Brooke Bodar, and she has taken over as our counselor.
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Brooke. So I had big shoes to fill, and so far I'm really enjoying it. Just love being. I've lived in the valley since 2016, so it's just really nice to be working kind of where we live and just get to know the kids. I love the K-12 atmosphere because I really kind of feel like I get to know most of the kids pretty well. So it's just a lot of fun to have the whole span of ages. And glad to be here and put faces to names, and thanks for having me.
Forgot to tell you I'm a Tiger too, class 2000. We'll be back 20 years later.
All right, thank you, guys. Item C, we have the audit report.
Alexander Wilkinson from Porter Muirhead, Cornea and Howard out of Casper, and they do our audit each year.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members, Dr. Copeland, and everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again. We have shown you a receipt of the audit report as well as the communication with the board that includes our required communication, discusses our responsibilities and changes. And I'm not going to necessarily go over the letter, but I want to highlight a few things because this was definitely the year of change. So it was one of the things that the district needed to implement one of the new accounting standards. It was NASB 84. It was supposed to be implemented in fiscal 20. However, our regulators allowed us 1 year of reprieve because of COVID. So everything kind of like moved over, and that's the standard got shifted over. What that standard entailed is different reporting for fiduciary activities. So the board may remember in the past, student activities were reported as a fiduciary activity as what's called agency fund. Agency funds are no longer all that. They actually don't report it that way. So applying certain guidance, the big difference is that student activities are now reported. So if you were to open on page 17 of your report, it's now a governmental, one of the governmental funds, and it's included with other governmental funds. So the implementation was relatively simple. So there was a balance sheet and income statement where in the past, it was included on page 26, 25 and 26 with the scholarship funds. So the difference is that where is the control over the funds and administrative control. And the district does have administrative control over the student activities. There is a responsibility that the sponsors are taking, and technically they could say that even though the students raise funds, the funds can't be spent on anything. So that was actually one of the biggest changes. The implementation wasn't difficult because the Department of Education has always mandated certain standards as far as the account structure, but there was always revenues and expenditures were, so it was easy just changing the presentation of student activities and folding them into the governmental funds. So that was one of the big changes. The other big changes, and
please turn maybe to page 77. I call this, it's kind of called I call it the report card sometimes because it basically, it's schedule of findings and question cost. When you, if the district did not have single audit, which means that the federal funds did not need it to be audited because the district did not receive more than $750,000 in federal funding in the prior years. But in fiscal 21, the district received about $1.7 million. So that was over 750,000. So when we audit federal funds, then there is additional reporting required. So then this is kind of like a report card. The reason I said that is because we are discussing here financial statements, federal awards, what major programs we audited. So we had one finding that we had to report. I think the board may know there was a finding in relation to the rec board. And we've had a response, and I have discussed this with the board. It was a significant deficiency that we reported. And then federal funds, we audited two major programs. One was the coronavirus relief fund, and the other one was the child nutrition cluster. We had no findings, and we issued an unmodified opinion on that as well as in the financial statements. The deficiency that we reported in relation to recreation board, it mainly recorded related to accounting records due to a changeover, but since there was it would not be enough. There was quite a bit of issues that we had to deal with in terms of getting the records compiled for the year end. So that's why it ended up being reported as a finding. So I think those are the two kind of the big issues, the implementation that's been before and having a single audit this year. As I've discussed with Sally, I think next year that's probably also going to be the case because the district received at least another $1 million, I think. So adding whatever the federal funds we received, usually that's special education, child nutrition, Title I, additional funding would also result in a single audit. I don't know if we will need to audit two programs. Probably the new program will have to be audited, and that may be sufficient. So the district was not a low risk auditee for federal funds, mainly because the district did not have any, did not have an audit for single federal funds in the past. But next year, that should be district should be a low risk auditee, which means that we would have to audit 20% of the funding that was received. And, opposed when it's low risk audit, you have to do 40% of the funding. So, are there any questions, or it's kind of a brief overview?
So the rec board issue you mentioned has kind of been taken
Yeah, we just,
care of for the most part.
I called into the board meeting and explained what the issues were, discussed with Ms. Priest, and also just visited with Mr. Clark. And I think I was just in kind of unfortunate events, former clerk was not able to complete all the transition, all of the records, and due to illness, and just kind of didn't happen because our responsibility would be to report those kind of issues, and we report as a significant deficiency. So unfortunately, because the rec board ends up being as part of the district report, we kind of had to do that. And it's only one component unit, which ends up being a major component unit in our accounting language and words and rules that we have to follow, and that's kind of how it's done. So
you can see the rec board's response is the last page to the audit report. So the rec board did an official response, which becomes part of the audit record. So when I send this to the state and the federal clearinghouse, this goes with it so that they know that the response is
we've already filed.
Yeah.
I've been filed with a clearinghouse, which when you have a single audit, you have to file a data collection form as well as the financial statements that are attached to it. There's a 30-day window that has to be filed from the date of the receipt of the audit. So thanks Sally and her staff. It takes quite a bit of time to prepare information that goes into the financial statements. I think in the past, we have discussed that there's like almost 3 different sets of financial statements here, because you have modified accrual, then you have budgetary basis, which is in the back, and also full accrual, which has debt, and all the debt and the fixed assets. So that takes quite a bit of journal entries and checking on everything that needs to be added and verified later on. I think we've been talking to WU that actually all the reporting really should be happening on modified accrual, like rather than on cash basis, because that causes trouble sometimes with the funding model and things like that. So on one hand, they are records on one reporting model, and then they are checking everything on the other reporting model, and everybody's having issues with that. So it's fine.
Thank you. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? And later down the agenda, we'll approve the accept the audit report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4A, correspondence.
We did get the following WASA sportsmanship letters. One was for Tucker Caricato, Saratoga versus Southeast football, October 8th. And then Case and Barkhurst and Michael Anderson, Campman versus Du Bois football on October 16th.
Good, thank you. Resignations and hiring. There are no resignations. There is a hiring on item B.
This is Casey Jones for Saratoga Middle School, other assistant basketball coach pending certification.
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we offer a 21-22 contract for the activity extra duty to Casey Jones as a Saratoga Middle High School other basketball coach pending certification.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to offer a contract for the activity extra duty for Casey Jones at SMS, other assistant basketball coach pending certification. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item 6A, superintendent report, Dr. Copeland.
All right, I'll just quickly go through these items. You can read most of them in the report itself. Item 1 is we always report on the enrollment figures. We're at 606 as of the end of October. Actually, I checked this morning, we're at 610, I think, or somewhere in there. So we actually picked up another couple of students. And you can see the changes there in each campus and in the campus areas, and also the difference from a year ago. So we're 8 up over a year ago and 6 up over last month. So we continue to gain slowly across the district, especially in the south end. Item 2, WSBA Fall Conference. We kind of went over most of this in the workshop, so I won't go over that again. I did send out an email with at least the persons that travel plans that stated them, and so if you ride with any of us going or coming, just reach out and we'll make that. COVID update, the latest data continues. We continue to be very fortunate. Our numbers are very low. We're at less than 1% positive for staff and students, so that's a good thing. That link is updated at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. It's on the district webpage, so you can always click that and see the latest numbers. The vaccine mandate, that's just kind of the ongoing thing. I've had a few questions about that. The latest, this has to do with the mandate from President Biden about companies that have over 100 employees must have their vaccines by January 4th, I think was the date. Multiple states, I think over half, have sued the government. There's a federal court, the 5th Circuit, which is New Orleans, that has put a stay on that order. They renewed that stay just in the last few days. So the latest information we've basically gotten is that we're just at a standstill until all of that is decided. I'm sure it will be appealed. I think the next appeal level is the Supreme Court. They will decide whether they have a stay in place while they consider it, if they accept it, or they may just let it stay where it was if they don't think they want to change it. So I will just keep you posted on that. So the latest thing is we're just sitting and waiting. The latest thing I got today from OSHA basically said everything's on hold. They're not gonna obviously enforce or anything until all the legal challenges are done. So even OSHA, the one that's supposed to enforce it, is basically, saying we're at a standstill now. So hopefully it will either stay that way or we won't have to deal with it. Just, I'd rather not deal with it. That's just my personal thought on that. Okay, item 4, Christmas holiday concerts, all of the dates there. I tried to put them in order of date so you can kind of see and pick if you want to go to any of those. First one's at HEM December 6th, and the last one's December 16th, SES 4th through 6th. So you can see those, and I'll try to go to as many as I can get in a schedule. Item 5, we had several donations. A lot of these are coming in from the mine reclamation work in Hannah, but you can see those. F&S Trucking for $1,000 to HEM Athletic Fund. Brierly Associates $1,500. Tim James $1,100. All of those are to HM Athletic Fund. $800 from Bridge Street Bargains to the Saratoga Elementary Blessings in a Bag. Donors choose $506 for some equipment for HM FFA. Farm Credit Services donated $1,500 to the Bow River Chapter FFA at HEM. Brian Lock Trucking $1,500 to HEM Athletic Fund, and Sinclair donated $2,000 to Blessings in a Bag to start that program up at HES, Medicine Bow, and Elk Mountain. So total of almost $10,000 of donations this last month. So that's nice to be able to list any kind of donations, actually. The only other thing I wanted to mention, I didn't put on here that Sally just kind of, we talked a little bit today about it, is we are in the process of trying to replace 2 MPVs that have over 200,000 miles on them and 2 used. Well, if we find used, we'll get used, but we have some specs out there and some feelers out with some dealers to keep watch, and also 2 pickups for snow plowing purposes. It's one in Saratoga, one in Hannah. They're the oldest and kind of for need. So Sally's put out some specs for those. This is just an informational thing that would come from depreciation reserve funding. So I'll keep you posted as we get anything back. It's kind of hard to find used vehicles lately, but we're looking for some under 40,000 miles. We may, there is a possibility of MPVs, especially get new ones that will be on the state bid list. But I'll just give you a heads up, and I'll keep you posted on all of it. So just to kind of give you an idea. And I believe that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Copeland. Next, we have the encampment school report. Erickson.
And the last couple of years with COVID, it's been a little more fun to make these reports to the board because you don't have to necessarily do your school improvement plan. You kind of branch out and talk about some of the great things that staff and students are doing. And so we're going to take that advantage of that tonight, and we're going to try and keep it in a manageable time frame. And so some of the stuff, we put some poster board and things over there for you to look at if you haven't had a chance to. A couple of things that we wanted to focus on. We wanted to focus on the outdoor education opportunities that we have because of the area we live in. And that's what those are referring to, the ongoing Bighorn Sheep project that we had Jordan Seitz report on. And then because of the Mullen fire, some of our elementary students got a chance to go do some habitat restoration as well. So that's there. And we didn't want to take time to talk about those, but just put some things there for you to see. We've also made mention in some of our school improvement reports in the past about our efforts to have instructional supports for our secondary students. And that's an area that schools across the nation struggle with because you just kind of bump along. You don't have any tools to really help you. But we were able to become part of a pilot program in the state of Wyoming. And Mr. Manning's helped us with that. And so we'll let you get a report from the 2 main teachers that have been to the trainings and the meetings, Leslie Linsky and Kareem Becca, in just a minute. The other thing that we've been doing is about a year ago in October, I got a nice, thick, certified letter that you had to sign for from the BLM. And it said, you are in violation of federal law and you must restore the habitat on the Indian Bathtubs Trail. Who knew? Okay, 30 years ago, the Encampment Riverside Centennial Committee, and that was the centennial of the state of Wyoming, along with Encampment School, we took out a lease to have the Indian Bathtubs Trail. I was unaware of it. I've been here 17 years and didn't know anything about it. So anyway, for several months, we filled out paperwork and went back and forth with the BLM, because if you've been up there, you don't want to have to plant sagebrush to fix that trail. So anyway, we were able to renew the lease for another 30 years. So that's a surprise for a future principal and school board. But anyway, and in the original lease agreement, it was done by Mr. Paxton, and he was the FFA teacher at the time. He said he would take an FFA group out yearly and do trail maintenance. There's a bridge to maintain. There's a couple of benches and some signs. So these guys got to do it. I talked to Mr. Switzer. He goes, I have a group of freshmen that are perfect for that. So they're going to end today with presenting to you. And they went out and did the maintenance. And we also were able to replace the signs after 30 years. And that was the other thing that the BLM said, oh, it's up to you guys to replace the signs. And I'm like, well, what do you want us to do? Hand clean them? We got some magic markers. What do you think here? But we were able to work with them, and they were able to replace the wooden signs that had been there for 30 years with new aluminum ones. And they will finish up our presentation tonight and talk about what they've done, and remind them to slow down if you have to. That's on the bottom of all their cards, right? Okay, and I promised them none of them would die after we present to you guys at the board. And I said if they did, we would promise to go to their funerals. So I'm going to turn the time over to Leslie Creed to talk about MTSS for a couple minutes, and then we'll finish with our FFA question.
We put together some notes for you guys. Can we not stand with our back? I know that you guys have a lot on your agenda, so we'll try to move through this pretty quickly. And then absolutely, if you have any questions, we are very available. We would love to talk about this. This is all we talk about all the time, actually. So we are part of, as Mr. Erickson said, a pilot program through the Department of Ed and AIR, the American Institutes for Research. And at the top of your page, we just have some definitions. I know that in education, there are all kinds of fun buzzwords. So we kind of explain to you what interventions are, what MTSS is, the multi-tiered system of support, and then how those tiers are broken down. And tier 1 is the instruction that's given to the whole class during regular classroom time. Tier 2 interventions would be any additional support time that's given to help meet the needs of students who are underperforming. And then tier 3 is that really intensive individualized instruction that usually happens more in the special ed realm.
So McCluskey and I, when we noticed that there was a need in our school for this, we've been trying this for a few years. We would see consistent growth through our students. However, a lot of students that were being provided support through elementary school, by the time they went from 6th grade to 7th grade, all the supports ended. And then it was just good luck. So we saw that there was a very clear need with a lot of our students that we needed some more targeted intervention to kind of either fill in holes, fill in gaps. And so we've been trying the last few years to work on something with that. One of our biggest things that we've run into is finding resources that we could use, as well as finding time within our school to be able to fill in those gaps, because during our regular classroom time with only 50 minutes, usually we're focused on the core instruction. So trying to find that time to fill in some of those gaps was kind of where we started to look at our schedule from there. So
we actually started going to trainings with the department as an air like pre-COVID. We spent probably 2 years going through all of their trainings, and we were starting to implement some interventions here. And then the world shut down and we backslid a little bit. So this opportunity to be part of this pilot program came along, and we immediately applied for it last spring. Noel, it was like, I don't know, April or May, I think we applied for it. And then we were in talks over the summer, and we really thought that we were going to get a program. Like they were going to say, hey, try these resources or use these screeners, or, here's this great system. And it turns out no one knows how to do this at the secondary level. So the program is kind of like, build it and we'll maybe use it. But we are getting support from them, and our two biggest goals for this year are to compile a list of resources that work at the secondary level for English and math. That would include screeners to help us identify kids who should be on our radar, diagnostics so that if we know that a kid is struggling, why they're struggling, progress monitoring tools, and then what sort of programs we have here in the district that we would be able to use. The second part of that goal is to figure out how to actually use data to measure our growth, which is also a big lack. YTOP is really not very, that's a good way to say this. YTOP doesn't really give us very specific information about where or why a student is struggling.
So right now, we have a state coach that's through this pilot program, Sarah Wickham. She's been working with us pretty closely. She's working on how are we going to address this in our school, how to implement it, and exactly what do we want that to look like. We also have Lori Ivy, who's a consultant for the district, and she's going to help us with the data piece, and she's going to kind of look at some of the raw data and try to break that down for us, so then we can actually use that to as we look for more targeted interventions there. MTSS is whole student focused, so it's not just the academic piece. For us right now, we are focused purely on the academic piece, because that's kind of out of our wheelhouse. Some of like the social emotional aspect, and how to provide interventions for that. So that is kind of like next year, a couple years down the line, maybe not next year, a couple years down. But that's something that if we continuing with this, we will eventually want to then start hitting that aspect of that as well. As of right now, we have about 30 minutes right before lunch that we are doing this. Ms. McClunsky and I, we are kind of pulling individual students, and then the rest of the students are doing like an enrichment. So they're going to the other teachers in our building and who are providing a week of enrichment, and then they rotate. While McClunsky and I are kind of focused on the specific interventions that we're doing with those students.
On the back, you'll see that there are 3 different approaches that we're trying out. One is called Win What I Need Now. And the rationale for that is that if we've taught a standard in class and 80% of our students have met the standard, then it's time for the class to move on. But that 20% of our students need either a reteach or extra practice in order to really prove proficiency on that standard. It's a nice approach in that it can just be a short duration. I mean, just maybe with another week or 2 that we can get those kiddos up to speed. The problem is that it's really reactive. The rest of the class has kind of moved on, and those students are kind of trying to meet that standard as well as get ready for the next one. Pre-teaching also shows a lot of promise. It definitely anticipates where we think students will struggle. It's nice with our population because we see students for so many years in a row, so we can kind of start to anticipate which kids maybe need a little more process time or which kids just need that front loading. The problem is it's kind of like you kind of just go by your gut, which often is great, but it's hard to really prove with data that they needed that pre-teaching. And then the third option is one that we're just now starting to explore, and that's a tier 2 group intervention, which would be filling gaps or supporting areas of weakness for more than just 1 or 2 kids at a time. It definitely has pros. I would, an example of what it would look like in English would maybe be if I identify a group of students who are reading below grade level, but all sort of at the same grade level, I could pull them for a small group guided reading time, where we sort of work on all the language arts standards. The trouble is that it's difficult to diagnose and prioritize those needs. A lot of times the same kiddos who need to get pulled for English are also the same kiddos that need to get pulled for math. So trying to weigh out the best use of their time is something that we haven't really quite figured out yet.
And the other thing with those is that with some, especially with our rural small population, it's harder for us to implement that here in like certain areas. So like the pre-teaching, what is harder for like McCluskey to maybe implement that approach as it is like in math, it'll be a little bit easier. While the tier 2, because of our small population, it's harder for me to find several students across grade levels that are all at the same spot where they would need that one intervention. While with perhaps like great reading level or lexile level, it may be a little bit easier to find several within multiple grades that are like, all right, in this particular level. So and that's kind of what we're trying to figure out is with which direction we kind of want to go with that. So for the spring, or kind of goals for the year, we would like to present to you guys again. We want to be able to have a comprehensive list of everything that our district does provide for staff, for diagnostic, for screening, and exactly what that would do for our teachers and for MTSS. We also want to have a clear and well-defined approach that we're kind of working through right now. So that way, moving more towards district look here, that with these 3 approaches, that's going to be kind of like a building decision on where the needs are. So we want to be able to have a concise way to present that to those buildings, so then they can make an informed decision on what would be better for their particular population. And then we also want to be able to present recommendations for improving how we're going to use our data to be able to make these decisions and to improve our tier 1 instruction as well.
Questions for us?
Have you worked at all with Rachel Johnson on any of this, since that is a similar kind of role that she is doing in the district?
Admin want to field
We've
that?
actually restricted use of Rachel Johnson directly with them because of the fact that they're in that pilot, and we're also paying a consultant to help them with their specific goals. Rachel's focused on elementary interventions.
And there seems to be a very clear, and this is like statewide, there's all kinds of resources and screeners and diagnostics and progress monitoring tools up to about 5th grade. And then it's just like everyone's fixed. And so like no one seems to quite know how to do this at the secondary level. Which I mean, I guess is refreshing because we're not behind, but but it's also challenging because every time we call up another school, they're like, yes.
So
Yes. Go ahead.
are there other schools I'm sure there's other schools in the pilot program. Are you able to collaborate with them or work with them? Or how does all that work?
Yeah,
Did I miss
the
that?
one, our state coach is also helping with Guernsey, who's a little bit of a similar population, and also like Riverton Middle School, which is huge and has a whole intervention team just for their middle schoolers. And they seem to have gotten the academic portion down pretty well, and now their focus is more on the behavioral and social emotional piece, which is often directly connected to why students are underperforming academically. But they're also, you know, they're huge. So yeah, so we are trying to get advice about, you know, what programs they're using and what's working for them that maybe we could borrow and steal.
Yeah, and so we've actually been trying to do a lot of that. Again, the big issue is that everybody's looking for the same thing. There's really not a lot out there that, and the few things that go high are it's about 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then anything past that is very limited at best.
And usually not research based, yeah.
Right, so.
And we have a unique situation here. I mean, we have small schools and small staff and limited time in our, you know, I mean, there are schools who have a whole intervention period that just is not quite feasible for our buildings right now, but that's what our pilot program is all about. It's trying it out.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Again, if anything that comes up at any point, like, we will talk your ear off about it.
Yeah.
So spent a lot of time and we have a lot of ideas. So at any point you want to talk with us, just let us know.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Did you guys take the initiative to do this, or is it something you guys were tasked to do?
No, I just did.
I think that's really cool.
I mean, I did sort of as I was applying, check with Mike to make sure it was okay.
Like I said, I just wanted to.
We were looking for that magic program. That's the thing that everybody's looking for, because we bumped along with this for a couple of years. And we hoped this pilot was gonna be that to help us, but again, we're kind of running up in that, no one really has it, so. You know, but we hope it's gonna be beneficial for us going forward.
Yeah.
It was less of a pilot and more of a, you're going to help build this from scratch, which was a little frustrating because we expected a lot of work, but it's a lot more than anticipated. A lot more than anticipated. So, but we're on our way and we have some results. So.
I'm actually Jordan.
I'm trying to fix the computer.
This is our project about reading backwards. We're all freshmen in the campus that are involved in volleyball, football, and everything. The campus was established in 1935 as Lock Lever Campus Chapter. We have 17 students enrolled, all active in multiple CDEs and other projects. We love helping out the community whenever we can. The Cameron Valley was a gathering place for the Indian tribes as they hunted in the summer months. The holes east of the river naturally gather snowmelt and rainwater. The tribes Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne are said to use these formations as bathing holes, and it's of course called living bathtubs, and the hike is about 3/4 of a mile. K-12 school is in a partnership with Yale and the Cameron Riverside Centennial Committee. They provided us with new informational signs for the trail. We spent half a day removing wormwood signs with new aluminum signs using our collective skills and knowledge.
Our future plans for the Indian bathtub trails are mostly things we notice about the condition of the area. Memorial benches are in good condition, but we need to refinish the metal frames. If there are any improvements you would like to see, we will take them.
These are just some of the pictures of us working on the side. You guys have any questions?
You guys giggle like the whole time you were up there working? Probably. Well, I hope you had fun. So.
Tracy, did you
told Grandpa and told him he should come help since he set this all up for you guys.
Christy, what did your grandpa tell you about setting up the benches?
Oh, he told me, he said, do you know who brought those benches in? He said, I did on my back.
Okay, thank you guys. I'm glad you're involved. in this.
Thanks, guys.
I didn't sign that contract.
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys for your presentations and how you've done. All right, special education report, Ms. Brown.
Okay, I'll also try to go fast. This was, as of last week, we were at 121 active special education students. Since I put this down, I think I've had several kids move in across the district that we came to us with IEPs that we'll have to test and determine eligibility. And then we've had quite a few parents request some testing too. So I expect this number to go up by quite a bit. For whatever reason, we're getting a lot of kids and most of them are on IEPs. So we're staying pretty busy with our new incoming kiddos. I did attach the special education report card. That's the report we get each year that looks at the indicators just to kind of judge where we're at. This year, they've changed quite a few things. One of them that I really liked is they put out some trend reports for us. So you can take a look at that. I did attach that one also. So we can kind of see how we're doing over time in a nice little graph form. Another change this year is the graduation rate and dropout rate. They have a new formula. And for our district, especially in small districts, it really helps out. So before our graduation rate for special education students, this last year was 85.7%. And in the past, that was just what it was. And so that was probably a student that got a certificate. And so they completed high school, just not with a regular diploma, but that always counted against us. And so now they're also looking at dropout rates separately. So it would, like this last year, our dropout rate was 0%, which is good. We don't, so that shows our kids made it through high school, just possibly without that regular diploma. So it was a good change for us there. Just one of the other things that I'm pretty excited about is our post-secondary outcomes. We've been improving in that area just for our kids, what they're doing. Last year, we had all of our kids were either gainfully employed or in post-secondary school. That had been our focus the last 3 years, was doing transition services with our kids. And so we're seeing that, the outcomes of that. So I was pretty excited about that. One of the areas that we did not meet the target was evaluations in 60 days. The target for that, of course, is 100%. That's just from when we get parental consent that we have the evaluations done in 60 days and we meet to determine eligibility for kids. Last year with those kiddos with 95%, why we didn't meet it, that was one student. We tested them and they moved away before we could have the meeting. So that was kind of a bummer. This year, we are having some trouble with getting our evaluations in a timely manner, and a lot of that is quarantines. So between staff and students, it seems like, if a kid has to be tested by 8 different people and the kid's out for 2 weeks and then the staff members are out for 2 weeks, it's been pretty hard and we're kind of scrambling at the end of that 60-day timeline to get those in. But we are trying. And then just kind of personally, if you look at it, I think this goes along kind of with what these guys were saying about our secondary schools. One of the areas that we've been low in the last few years is in our secondary proficiency levels. This year, it was our 8th grade that was quite low. There was only 3 kids that took the test, so that's kind of telling. But it's also just consistently been low in the areas of math and English or in ELA at the 8th grade level. So we need to take a closer look at that and figure out what we can do to better support those kids at middle school level. Some other things going on in the special education world. We do have some of the ARP funds from the COVID funding that's specifically for special education. That is going to be, that grant's due December 1st. We do have a special ed directors meeting this week where we're going to be discussing some possible uses for that. But it's just like all the other funds. I think we'll probably be looking at the gaps in student achievement, specifically towards our special education, and see where we can use those funds to help out there. It's pretty wide open, so hopefully we'll get some good ideas and be able to do some good things with that money. There are some changes coming to chapter 44. We're going to be looking at that too. One of the big things is starting next year, we will be billing Medicaid, for our OT, PT, all of the speech therapies, those kinds of things. The program we use for writing our IEPs also works with South Dakota, and South Dakota already does Medicaid billing. So they have quite a bit of information about what that might look like and a good program to help us so that it's not quite as much of an undertaking to be able to put in systems to do that. So I think there will be a little bit of work beforehand to make sure that we have all the right codes and all of our providers are Medicaid providers already, but then I think after that it should be fairly seamless. And then, like I said, we have the WASIA conference later this week, and so I should come back with quite a bit of information from that. I hope I learned some things. Other than that, with Title I, we just had our district parent meeting last week. It was pretty short and sweet and not a whole lot of participation. All the schools have had their school parent meetings. So we had the books and breakfast and dads and donuts, and up north they did, and at the open house, some information, and then they also did just a Thanksgiving kind of thing too.
Right, and she did a Camp Reads a lot.
Oh yeah,
back in October
yep,
as well.
thank you, yep. So all the schools have been doing some parent engagement things, and then we all met together to kind of go over those and see what we can do better or how to get more people, which this year we had record numbers of people in all the schools. So it was pretty exciting. And then just lastly, we are still working on the federal grant monitoring. We're hoping to have that ready to turn in by the end of the week. Again, Pam Schroeder has been doing work on this for a year and a half. So she's done most of the legwork for us, and we're just kind of going in and filling in. Hopefully this gives them time to go through and kind of give us some feedback before the actual end of the monitoring process. So do you have any questions for me? That was a lot, fast and furious. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, curriculum report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my report is attached as usual. I do not have any curriculum or district assessment system updates for you. In terms of assessment, progress monitoring with K through, well, 6 really, K through 6. M-class, sorry, DIBELS M-class testing is essentially, I mean, it's not really an open close situation, but we had enough time to get enough progress monitoring and really to start to see some trends now with students. And so Rachel Johnson has been kind of pouring into that data for a while. We've been involving Terry Baby Schwartz in that process. Rachel and I have been able to meet recently and talk about that data and talk to some principals as well about what that data is indicating. Right now, we're really looking at where are those goals for progress monitoring. If you remember, when we first introduced to you Rachel's role, we talked about how we were not going to really force her upon teachers. It was going to be optional for teachers to work with her. And she was willing to help out with that progress monitoring of their students if they wished. We also kind of threw in the caveat, though, that if we see teachers kind of struggling in these situations, we're going to try to push a little bit harder to get her involved in that. So we're trying to address those gaps where students are not being progress monitored on a regular basis like they should be. And then we're also looking at the data that's getting us closer and closer to the middle of the year testing with DIBELS testing. It's really going to show us if students are really making the progress that the program and that we're expecting for them in terms of literacy, in terms of learning to read, learning, well, to be at grade level where they are. I'll talk about a little bit of that data actually at the end of my report when I talk about some more information about Rachel. A lot of the other work is, or the rest of my report is really just focused on other work. I've mentioned some reports for the state last month and continue working on those. I did mention the WD 949 and the 950 transcript reports last time. Unfortunately, after we had our last 18 meeting, as I was getting ready to submit my report for the transcript information for the seniors, I kind of just stumbled upon a pretty major issue we had with the data extraction service we pay for that pulls information out of our PowerSchool grade entries, and I had to hand key about 300 individual student records from last year's seniors. That's a big time sink, and hopefully we'll be able to resolve that. But that took a lot of my last few weeks as I was working on some of these things. I mentioned that report before. A lot of that has to do with final GPAs and halfway status with our graduating seniors, so it's kind of an important piece. Dr. Copeland and I also reviewed our accreditation file, and I submitted that about a week before it was due. It was due on November 1st. Not really concerned about that. We went over the file pretty extensively. I think all of our evidences were there. We've been able to pass accreditation with that new process that started a few years ago every single year, so I'm not concerned about that. Robin already mentioned the consolidated grant monitoring process. We've been working on that, at least Pam Schroeder. I'd give Robin a little bit more credit than what she brought up just now when she talked about Pam. Pam's been doing a tremendous amount of work. I think Robin's been doing a lot of work as well, though, just because a great majority of those reports really focuses on a lot of special education and a lot of homeless student situations, evidences that we need to submit to them. I've been working on Title II and Title IV pieces of that. That pales in comparison to all the work that they have to do. So thank you again to them for everything they're doing, especially for Pam. And like Robin said, hopefully we'll be able to turn that in relatively soon. We had our district service on November 5th. Encampment had theirs a week before on October 29th, just because they had the opportunity to install those new audio enhancement systems you see in the back of the room. Have those all ready, and then actually we have the opportunity to get teachers trained, so we pushed encampments in service a week earlier so that they could have that in person and get those use of those systems going. From all accounts I've heard, teachers are enjoying it tremendously for all of the educational opportunities they can provide us, like the ability to record lessons and review those. The in-service on November 5th with all the rest of the staff, I think it went very well, and most of that is judged based on the lack of feedback we received. We did not get a lot of feedback from teachers on that day. I'm pretty sure that's because everyone was more or less happy, so they didn't have anything to necessarily complain or I guess praise us about. But we really try to focus in on requests for teachers, and that day they asked for some classroom time. So we kept it within buildings, and we try to give them as much classroom time as possible so they could work on things. And then unfortunately, people did want some face-to-face PLC meetings. We weren't able to give that to them, and that's just because we can't have the best of both worlds. We can't let everyone stay at their own buildings, but then also try to pull people together face-to-face meetings. So I guess we'll try to switch back and forth, but primarily we want to focus in on what the teachers are asking and try to meet them with their needs. And then the last things I put in there is just we've got the new SO3 grants. So some preliminary work on that and just trying to use the money with students' best interest. I mentioned a science grant last month that the secondary science teachers applied for. They did, we did receive confirmation that they will get the grant. I believe it's a little bit over $100,000, and it's specifically for filming science labs and making them virtual to not only help our own students, if students are absent, because it's really a pain to get kids made up on those labs, but then also this is something that the Department of Education and University of Wyoming are putting together kind of in a joint measure. And then other schools could benefit from that work too. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. I attached, do I have any questions regarding my report?
Maybe if you follow up about the PA audio system, how that works, or what that is.
Happy to talk about that. Let me go over Rachel's report briefly. Rachel attached her report. She's done a tremendous amount of trainings recently. She's really diving into the science of reading, and it's quite complex. If you had the chance to ever talk to her about the benefits of the interventions that we can give to students, implement to students. I mean, there's tremendous research out there that talks about the benefits of that. So I won't go into those details, but you're welcome to go through and see what she's been doing. She's been working with Tammy Beebe Schwartz a lot to talk about that data and talk about best interventions for students. One thing I really want to sing praises for her about is what I talked about before when I talked about how we gave teachers a choice. We had 2 teachers in the district that really jumped on board with the, hey, we would like Rachel to help us with progress monitoring because we see that as a potential benefit that it could be. And it's small information and you can take it how you want to. However, as I go through the data and see how students are going through the progress monitoring process, essentially what happens is we have a benchmark test at the beginning of the year, shows us where students are. It might not be accurate. It's been a summer. Students aren't necessarily going home and focus on their literacy during the summer. But then with that data, then we progress monitor, we see how students are performing and we implement interventions as necessary or activities, etc., just to keep them at least on level. The goal is to get them by the end of the school year to the national average, essentially, level that they should be for their particular grade. Now, this isn't to say that what other people are doing is incorrect, but those 2 teachers who took Rachel up on that opportunity, who Rachel has been working with much more regularly and providing them interventions, their students are overwhelmingly very close to, if not already have met their middle of year goals based on amplified data. That's tremendous. That's not a giveaway that says anytime Rachel goes into a classroom, she's going to make things better, because Rachel's doing her part, helping with progress monitoring, providing teachers with intervention strategies. The teachers are also implementing them. It's a great collaboration between educators that have the best interests of students in mind. But I just wanted to sing the praises of that system, because that's what we really designed it and pushed it for, was allow this person to help teachers to take a little bit off of their plate so that they can focus maybe a little bit more directly with the needs of their students in the classroom. So far, Rachel's been working with those teachers. Her role's been expanding slowly. She's also now doing progress monitoring up north with a few teachers, and they're very excited about having that load taken off their shoulders. And she's getting involved in some interventions now with first graders at SES, which is a little bit beyond what we designed her role to be. But that's what teachers continuously ask for, and we made sure that it wouldn't take too much time out of Rachel's day to support other teachers. It will work, and so we're going forward with that. So as we look at some other teachers, there are some other teachers that are struggling doing that progress monitoring consistently. There are some teachers as well who have students in their classroom that don't look like they're going to meet their middle of year goals with that amplify, that DIBELS testing. So to see teachers that took up this offer and see that it's working quite well, to me, that's very striking, and that's something we need to keep in mind as we continue on. If there are students that aren't approaching those goals that they need to be making. Again, this is all tied in with legislature that is saying students have to be at a certain level by the time they finish 3rd grade. And if not, then we need to make corrective action plans to get them to that grade level of student literacy. So, any questions about that? The camera systems, let's circle back to that. Do you want more information?
No, just how they work or what the.
So the way that they work, to my understanding, it's web-based essentially, so that teachers have control of these systems within their classrooms. It's a 2-part system, really. One is that it allows teachers to amplify their voice, so they wear a microphone on a lanyard essentially around their neck, So they turn it on and it will project their voice through.
That one you sent me,
speakers.
I was wondering what that, yeah, it was. Okay.
And then as well, so teachers are pretty much always regularly using that from those that have been in the system now. Even small classrooms that the teachers say it's great, and there are students that are saying this is so much better in this way. It's basically because they hear better. They also have access to the camera system. Teachers completely control that. So they can set it up so that they can record lessons. By default, though, the system is off. There's also parts like to the lanyard, there's an emergency call situation where teachers can very quickly activate an emergency call that goes directly to the office in case there's any kind of emergency. So it's a little bit faster, obviously, than picking up the phone, or if there's any kind of event that would prevent the teacher from doing that. I believe there's a panic button somewhere in the room that's been installed. That essentially can work the same way as the lanyard on the teacher. So if there's any reason why the teacher wouldn't be able to use a lanyard, then there's possibility someone else in the classroom can use that. There's also from the aspect of the school itself, the new PA system that will do the bells. So we heard that tone at the beginning of the board meeting. That's customizable for the school, but then it's also easier for people in the office to very easily and very quickly select a classroom and talk to that classroom directly. For maybe principals that use, you guys have anything to add?
If they do the emergency call or whatever, it also turns on the camera in the office, so you can see exactly what's going on. It records that, so if you ever have to go back to it or whatever for that emergency.
All right, thank you. Okay, item 7, audience comments. If there's anybody here that has a comment or things they want to say, general comment. Okay. Seeing none, we have no unfinished business at this time, so we'll go ahead and move on to new business. The first new business item is to consider approval of grant received by BOCES to improve lighting in northern elementary schools and permission to advertise for bids.
This is a grant opportunity that Brett Monks, the BOCES director, pursued. And it's a state agency, or the Wyoming Energy Authority, that's basically promoting more efficient energy. So our 3 northern elementary schools did not have LED lighting, so they did an energy audit, and they projected that if we installed these LED lights, that it would save approximately over $8,000 a year in electric cost for those 3 buildings combined. So bottom line, the cost is estimated to be about $52,000 for the whole thing. The grant provides $25,000 toward that. So the rest of the cost would come out of major maintenance, and I mean, theoretically will pay for itself over the next 3 or 4 years. So if the board will give us permission, we'll put out bids. The work needs to be completed by June 30th. So this is just permission to move forward with the grant and the call for bids.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the grant received by BOCES to improve the lighting in northern elementary schools and give permission to advertise for bids.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the grant and advertise for bids on the lighting system up north. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next item, some of you might be here for this, I'm not sure. Campman football program. Yeah.
Background on this, I just put this information in the item. 2019, group players came forward and asked for permission to start a volunteer or basically donated, for the most part, football program here, which the board granted permission for that. The district paid for transportation, which of course is basically reimbursed at the state level. And then also the district has funded the officials cost. So those 2 items, but everything else was basically donated. So that meant the field itself had a lot of work to get ready, and there was some donation of labor and money to get the field playable. The coaches have all volunteered now. This was their third year of volunteering their time. I don't think there's any question that it's been quite successful. Last year, they lost in the semifinal by 2 points. This year, they made it to the state championship game last weekend. So I recommend that the board, basically the big difference is funding the coaching stipends. I would like to go ahead and do that this year so that they're paid for the time that they just donated. And then moving forward, have it funded just like the programs at Saratoga and HEM. That's the background and my recommendation. Be glad to answer any questions. I'm sure there's others there that are here that could answer questions or make comments, but I do appreciate, I think we all probably need to recognize all of those that donated. There were several businesses and ranches and all kinds of people that made that possible and totally proved themselves that they were committed to that program. So I think we need to recognize that effort also. So, and congratulations to the team for their outstanding success.
I don't know, they couldn't even beat bags. No, you guys need to be very, very proud of yourselves. You guys have, from where you started from in 2019, when you guys all stood up here and asked for us to grant you the permission to be able to build this program to what you guys have conquered. It is very, very impressive. So I don't wear red to a football game very often, but last Friday I did.
I complimented mine.
So, but I'm 100% for it. Matter of fact, it's probably a little bit late. So, but congratulations, gentlemen. You guys did fantastic.
Yeah, we're super proud, and I'm sure you guys are, to be able to represent your own school and to be able to do it at the state playoffs. I know you came up a little short and it was a bummer, but it's still pretty awesome how far you came. So with that, I would move to approve funding the encampment football program.
It's been moved and seconded to go ahead and approve the encampment football program, including coach stipend for this school year. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks, guys. You're welcome to ditch out, or you can stay for the whole board meeting if you want to. It's pretty exciting.
No, part of getting the money. You have to stay.
Yeah, that's.
We have a lot of fun
Well,
here.
thanks. It was a lot of fun to watch you guys Friday.
Congratulations, you did well.
Thank you. Okay, item C, substitute pay level.
This has been a problem, not for just us, but every district, I think, in the state has had trouble having enough substitute coverage since COVID started. And really, one could argue we at times had trouble even before COVID. It's just gotten a lot worse. Some of our substitutes last year, when we opened back up because of COVID, chose not to come in and substitute, just I guess the exposure and all, they were had some concerns. So we lost some substitutes there. We've since done an alternative substitute certification program application that we just approved last year. So that lessens the lessens the steps and the details of trying to get what used to be PTSD certification by allowing us to have their substitute time count as in classroom observation. It just consolidates some of the time requirements. We raised our substitute pay a few years back to $100, and that was $100 per day. That was pretty comparable when we did that to the other districts in the state, especially those our size. But it's been a while, and now a lot of the districts have used their ESSER money, and we understand that the governor is going to make available any day now amounts to each district funding just for this. So I'm recommending that we raise the substitutes pay from 100, and I don't know that this will answer. It will reward the ones that are helping us out for sure. a little bit and making that retroactive to the beginning of the year. I added that cost up. If we make it retroactive, that cost as of a couple of days ago would be around $6,000 to kind of reward those that have held out in the trenches and come up and covered classes. The other issue that we've had is we've used our teachers to give up their planned periods to cover classes when we can't find a sub. So it's kind of bad to ask them to give up their planned time. Basically, that just forces them to do that at home or some other time. So this has been what a lot of districts are also doing, is paying them for that period of time so that if they have to then go do planning at home, at least, I used it years ago when I was a teacher. We occasionally had to cover like that, and it's kind of a bummer to give up your planned period in school. But anyway, and this is pending approval to use ESSER or the year of the governor's fund. But I would like to, or I am recommending to raise that from 100. The reason the 125, you can go to 150, you can go to basically probably bigger amounts based on ESSER money that looks like it's going to come in. However, I'd like to have, some districts have raised their substitute way up there, but then said when the money runs out that it's going to go back. I would rather raise it to 125 and then sustain that after the grant, and be more reasonable about it. And hopefully this will, like I say, at least reward the ones that are persevering, and then also maybe attract a few that maybe have thought about it. So that's our, I'm still trying to think of what to do about bus drivers. So if y'all have brainstorms on that, let me know. But this is my recommendation to raise the substitute pay and make it retroactive. And the $35. That would start today because we have not documented that. So.
How often do teachers have to give up their planning period?
The principals can do that, but it's fairly often from what I'm hearing. Y'all go ahead though and answer.
Today was the first day in 3 weeks that I've had enough subs to cover what I needed for certified staff. I'm not even talking about the. It's been very much a challenge.
So numerous teachers a day giving up.
And they combine classes, they do all kinds of things.
Yeah, just because they're very willing to help us out, but anything we can do to reward them would be greatly appreciated.
We have everything from classes going to the library, me covering classes, teachers giving up their planning period, combining classes, just everything we can do to cover classes just because we don't have subs. Today was, I think, the first day we've actually had 2 subs in the building that had all our classes covered. So it was a good day.
I move we raise the substitute pay from 100 to 125 a day, retroactive to the beginning of the school year, and also pay teachers $35 per period that they cover and give up their planning period.
Second. It's moved and seconded to go ahead with this pay increase as stated by Dr. Copeland there. It was recommended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. 10 would be the consent agenda.
And we would approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
So moved and seconded that we pass the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, section 11A, treasurer's report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your general fund balance at the end of October was $3,560,244.50. You can see there in section 1 your revenues and expenditures for the month of October. In section 2, you can see your major receipts from the State of Wyoming Foundation. That does include a tax shortfall grant of about $130,000 in the 991. Your normal foundation payment every month is about $795,000. And your Carbon County Treasurer, and of course, this month is the month that Carbon County Treasurer receipts go up for November and December, or October, November, December collections are higher during this month because that's when everybody's paying their taxes. And then we'll have high revenue next in May and June. And then section 3 is where your money is invested at the various rates. We don't have anything in CDs. Most of our money is in WildStar, which gives us the best rate on our funds.
What was the tax shortfall grant thing you mentioned as part of the state?
What that means is that we estimated what our 6 mil and 25 mil would be last year, and it fell short of what we anticipated. And so they give us more school foundation money in the form of a tax shortfall grant to make that up. Normally, we don't see that. And basically what it does is it offsets the amount that we, the $170,000 we had in cash carryover that was over the limit that we had to pay back last year in the foundation guarantee. So they really offset each other. We didn't get enough in taxes, but so they give us a little bit of a bump. Any other questions on your general fund? Your other funds are shown on the second page with all of your grant monies and their various balances. You do see that we're spending down the governor's relief money and the ESSER money are being spent down. The payroll account, the payroll comparison from October of 2020 to October of 2021, and that includes all funds. So that would include all the employees that are being paid from grant funds. And we have a few more this year being paid from grant funds than we had last year. So that would be the bulk that you see there. Not much, but it's there. The scholarship accounts, their balances, there were no new scholarships issued during the month of October. And you see the balances and the expenditures and revenue and your other funds as listed. Do you have any questions regarding all your other funds? Okay. Do you have any questions regarding your summaries for revenue and expenditures? They're very, very close to where we were at this time last year. Okay. That concludes my report.
The Bills Committee and I met with Sally. We have 2 questions for her, so I recommend that we approve the following bills. Sorry, I don't recommend. I move we approve the following bills. General Fund, $204,495.44. Federal Fund, $44,701.14. Major Maintenance Fund, $262,686.62. Hot Lunch Fund, $33,732.04. Encampment Activity Account, $3,092.39. HEM/HS Activity Account, $3,915.55. Saratoga Schools Activity Account, $14,001.68, for a total of $567,694.
It's been moved and seconded. $4.96. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, December bill committee will be Miller, Gaspery, and Clark. Last thing on financials would be to accept the audit report.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
Move second to approve the audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Can I ask Sally a question on that? So that one problem with the rec board, how does that show poorly upon our audit, or does that affect us in any way?
Not financially or any significant way, and especially with their response and their explanation being there. It just they'll just watch for it next year to make sure the auditors will watch and make sure that they've done everything that they promised to do, and we'll be fine. But it doesn't. It's not a financial ding, for lack of a better term. They're not going to ding us financially because we had the rec board had a burp in their transition.
Burp? It was a burp.
For lack of a more technical term. But no, it won't. It doesn't give us a black eye, it just gives us a finger poke.
I'll stop talking.
Moving right along. Items from the board. Review board governance leadership tab 1.06, which talks about the role of the board chair. Anybody find any issues or things that felt need addressed with that? Don't have any other policies or regulations. Review this time. Item C, Georgia.
I did attach, or have Dana attach the report that Dan Mayor does every month. So you can look at that. As you can see, there is another day school that's probably going to be added or is being added, which is a good thing. So let's have a question. We will meet Wednesday when we're up there, so hopefully I think we should be done hopefully by the time dinner.
Okay. Thanks, Georgia. Appreciate you taking the time to do that. Okay, all right. Item D is discussion of superintendent search. Obviously, with Dr. Copeland resigning, we need to go about finding a new superintendent for the district. We got a few things from WSBA. Basically, the first thing to decide, I think, is whether we want to use WSBA to help us with the search for a new superintendent. That there is a cost with that. Okay, let's see what that is. It's on one of those. Okay, $6,500 for WSBA members, and that's for their time to help with, you know, screening candidates and doing recommendations, that kind of stuff. Did you guys get a chance to look at their PowerPoint and basically, you know, they would help. It's our search for superintendent, but they would help us with that search if we want them to. So the first thing, really, if you guys have any input on whether or not to use them in that search.
Have we used their services in the past for the superintendent search? Like Dr. Copeland?
Yes.
Yes. Going through that process, is that something that
Well,
is positive?
using them, it still takes a lot of time and effort and meetings and so I cannot imagine not using them. Because otherwise we would have to do. I don't know about you, but I really don't have a lot of spare time to be doing all this stuff.
I think that's, go ahead.
How does it work with having meetings and stuff about that? Do we have to have open meetings to discuss it, or is it personnel? Because I read on there a couple times, like the whole board interviews them or whatever. How do that work?
That was an executive session, like Joe's actually.
The actual interview, but there were times, my experience on this is actually, is there were times where we'd have to call special meetings on a Sunday evening to address issues as they came up. And hopefully that doesn't happen, but you have to be prepared and have a mindset that for the next 3 months, it's going to be pretty busy for us as a board. Now, all the meetings, like when we'll meet with the WSBA, they'll present all the resumes and we'll go through them. And that's time consuming. I don't know if that is an open meeting or not. But I mean, we're not just,
If you're gonna have more than a quorum, there's a meeting.
yeah,
Call a special meeting and go right into executive session. You still have, for notice purposes, it's still a meeting.
okay. And it's only on the emergency, I know that we can have that because of where we don't have to advertise. But that we can't make any decisions, then we have to come back out, have an advertised meeting to confirm what we decided in the special meeting. It's just a lot of work. But I mean, to choose the right superintendent is a very important job that we have to do.
I do remember, Joe, like you guys obviously must have came down, I can't remember how many it was, like 2 or 3. And then because I remember going to the community center and it, like Dr. Copeland so up and spoke, and there were several community members present, like it was open, and like I think we could ask questions kind of, and I don't exactly remember, but something like that.
It was just 4.
Yeah.
For all the candidates. Everyone.
There would still be, yeah, public forums and have staff involved and
Yep.
it's kind of search committee type of thing. But when I read through this, I guess my take is kind of what Joe said, is that I would struggle to think that it's feasible to do without the VSBA and how that would look. And so we can guide the process and set the agenda and how that should look, but as far as the advertisement, and obviously they look, so I talked to Brian Farmer about who else in Wyoming that he knows of is looking for superintendents this year. I mean, who are we competing with in the state of Wyoming right now? And obviously there's other states also lurking, but Warland, Arvada, Claremont, and Cody, so 3, from 2 would make 4. I mean, this is something they do every year. They have a process for this. Yeah. And if the person leaves for whatever reason within a year, we get half our money back. If we're not satisfied with the service, they'll forfeit their fee. So they have a little satisfaction here too. So I guess the first thing I would like if we could get a motion to go ahead and secure their services or work with them to do this.
Mr. Chair, I move that we contract with the WSBA for our superintendent search services.
It's moved and seconded to contract with the WSBA for the superintendent services. Any further discussion? And I do plan to go through the other points after that. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. And then that's the PowerPoint. If we go to, they had some suggestions here for what the process would look like and a little bit of a draft timetable. If we look at that timetable, obviously we haven't done that board characteristic survey, which is, I think, fine. I did attach it to the executive content in the agenda. I got it Friday from Brian Farmer. If we could have that done by next Monday, they could send us an online link so that it will just be online for us to complete by next Monday. And what that is, the characteristic survey is just what our priorities as a board are and what we're looking for in the next superintendent. And so that helps them when they get a bunch of resumes in to help them.
So each one of us needs.
To do it, not as a board, and then it would get compiled. That's my understanding. I would have to clarify that, but I think if each one of us does it. So that's the first step.
Each board member.
By next Monday. So advertise the vacancy. They have on here November 29th. The main hindrance, if I look further down into us doing that right now, is to put, there's a minimum salary. What they had, if I look to kind of an example of what it would look like, the application pack. So I think that's page 4. They said applicants are told the district is seeking these characteristics, with amount not less than blank base salary. So the question of how to come up with that number, I don't know if that's something we can answer tonight or not. You know, I don't know if that's something we're comfortable discussing in open session or executive session. I think something I can be open to share. One place I would think about a starting point would be, you know, if we look back kind of where Dr. Copeland was more towards the beginning of when he was here. Obviously, we've had some inflation and stuff since then, so we might not want to go clear to the beginning, but I don't know that I would personally want to set the minimum for where he's at right now. You know, because I don't, you know, who knows, we might have somebody that's really experienced as a superintendent apply, and we might have, but I.
Do you put depending on experience?
Well, yeah, I think you put a base in there, and if you get a highly, there's an offer to be made. The superintendent is not on a salary schedule. When you finally make an offer to somebody, they're not on a salary schedule. But I think with the application packet, there's an expectation that there's a minimum. And I can clarify that with Brian Farmer.
Yeah, because if you set it too low, like if I scroll through, like looking at, it's like looking
You're
at
not gonna
shoes
apply.
and you're like, ooh, those shoes are too expensive. I'm not even gonna look at it.
Right.
Kind of that thing.
And you know, maybe WSBA can help with kind of where the state is. You know, where we.
Do you have that information, Sally?
And I can tell you what the funding model funds for our superintendent, as far as maybe a starting point, or what the base salary for superintendents are. That's something I can do that.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Okay.
All right. So that was kind of the base, our minimum base salary was one of the main things in terms of advertising the vacancy that.
So
it could
maybe
do.
not to just put in, but maybe we could, if she can get that email to us, we can all kind of look over that and send then that to you, like what we kind of think the range could be, and then we could kind of.
Yeah, I think we can accomplish that through an email or a phone call as opposed to a public meeting about the base salary.
They're gonna make any decision about having, or you technically discuss. You want to send out an email that's informative, that's okay, but if you're going back and forth with information.
Okay, thank you. I knew we needed you here today for this, because there is some.
You're gonna have to follow us around really closely, Bill. I can tell from here on.
Right, and so
You can appoint a committee, it's less than a quorum, and committees can talk.
but at the end of the day, the board has to approve what the committee says, so.
See if I can find some.
That's fine.
And just as a reminder, the December board meeting is quite late.
Right,
For a
yeah,
normal meeting,
right.
it's the 20th of December, next board.
And then just back through their agenda, just looking there, meet with WSBA staff to discuss the process. Is that something that you did, or Joe, in the past, or was you were talking about more just with the candidates?
No, they come in and, you know, they might. Let's go back to the time schedule. I think they might even have done it, and I can't remember exactly, but when they brought the resumes, and then we, you know, so they killed two birds with one stone. Was going through all those resumes and we grade them, and they're on a board, giving all our scores, and they figure out, we got to whittle it down to two or three. Yeah, is most, I think.
And I think that's obviously something for us to talk about too.
And also, you know, this is all dependent on, we call them up and say, chosen, let's just say it's 3, and then, but we have to have all. Somebody says,
What if we get sketchy ones principals that we got in the past. And we don't
Still
get
not
any good
looking at
Send them
candidates.
back to Ohio.
Mainly JD, but besides that.
Oh, I thought you were working one right by.
Okay, so that,
Did you get a lot of candidates when you did it before?
There were a lot of resumes that we read through.
and so sometime meet with WSBA, applications due sometime around the end of January. We review them basically then, beginning of February, and try to interview in February. And then they have follow-up visits if we need to go to their hometown and make sure they were good people there, I guess. Does anybody overall with this schedule have any major issues, conflicts?
According to the schedule, they come in at our December board meeting and go on the process.
Well,
Or they said that's optional.
that's optional, but that's, I guess, part of what I wondered if we did that at the December board meeting. Or the January one, either one. So, before we get to the final selection, if they would come kind of make us a presentation.
Well, it
More than what they've
won't
done.
hurt to have them come in and just tell us.
For $6,500, they should come in and tell us a lot of stuff.
With the survey that we do, don't they take that and kind of go through the applications, sort them out, kind of, so we don't have.
So that's a question. I think one of the things that makes, that's up to us. We can have them help sort through. So I think obviously we can have access to any application. And so it's probably smart to do what you're saying, Charlie, like that, to have them use that information and narrow it down a little, but then also have access to the full. If anybody wants it, they will provide us all applications. And
If you don't want to just discuss it and come up with this minimum tonight, the advertisement is the first thing to start giving time for people to start applying. I mean, if it's gonna have to wait till after a meeting, you don't want to do it tonight, it's either gonna have to be at the December meeting or a special meeting. You're not gonna get any, I mean, the earlier you advertise, probably the better you're gonna get applications, it's all.
right,
Point I'm trying to
yeah,
make.
I understand.
So,
And that's something we discuss in executive session? Or
I don't know, that's a real quick, can they discuss the minimum salary in an executive session?
Yeah, you can discuss,
You can do that tonight, or you can do it the next meeting.
I have numbers.
I would suggest we do it tonight.
Do we have to do it in executive session?
I'm not talking about any specific offer, so.
No, we don't have to.
So let's get the minimum started. Someone says she's got it.
So, yeah, can we ask her what our funding model pays for?
Yeah.
She can go in executive session, give you information too, by the way, and then she can go in and out. I mean, it's just however y'all want to do it. She's welcome to share the model.
We're not talking about any specific person, you don't have to go around.
Yeah.
So you can talk to you.
I guess I would lean towards not going into executive session because it's gonna be published anyways.
It's gonna be on the.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so basically the funding model starts at 78,936 is where it's base salary. Then it depends on their education, and their superintendent, I think our qualifications are a master's degree. So you add, for a master's degree, you add 12,595. And then for your ADM, you add 2425. 2,425, that's based on the number of students we have, okay? And then experience, there's an adjustment, yada, yada, yada. So basically your minimum is gonna come up to be, make sure I added all this right, let me add the 2425. About $93,956, so $94,000 as kind of a starting point with no experience, only a master's degree. Now, Dr. Copeland has a doctor's degree, so there's a little bit added for a doctor's degree. There's added money for experience as far as funding goes. So your basic, your basic starting point with, based on our ADM and a master's degree being the qualification that they have to be a superintendent, and your base salary, you're looking about $94,000. Long story short.
Yeah.
And I would say you're not gonna get too many applicants.
No.
But 94.
I wouldn't think so either. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not six figures. I don't think you're gonna get many people apply. for
My
it.
starting salary where I was hired was 115. I remember. I'm pretty sure so. And then it was incrementally because of those steps. So that was just for reference.
Right.
Well, I'm looking at
8
you, you
years
have a
ago.
doctor's degree.
Right.
And that's about the difference.
And some experience.
Yeah, and a little bit of experience.
But that was I think, I'm trying to remember what was on, wasn't the announcement, isn't that what was on the announcement, Joe, the 115? I can't remember now.
I can't remember either.
And I apologize, I didn't bring that.
Yeah, I thought about it.
I do remember we decided to make it more attractive, I guess. And we offered a 2-year contract, rather than just one.
Yeah, there's no way to know what the average district of our size would be. We don't know how experienced they'll have been at.
Well, and they all start at the same place as far as funding goes.
Right.
That's the only thing I can speak to as far as the funding model. There are surveys out there from WSBA and from WEA as to salaries, but it takes me a little bit longer to look that up.
Yeah, I mean, even in their application packet, it has 3 X's there.
It's helping you.
Starting at $100,000, you're probably.
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna be over.
Because we're just saying a minimum, and then the rest would be depends on education and experience.
So how much does the PhD change it from the master's degree?
Learning model gives $15,000. For PhD.
Yeah, it costs
I
way
pay
more than
that
that.
way, but just to get it.
Yeah, he began at 115.
So if you didn't have PhD, master's degree and some experience would have been around 100, a little over 100.
But how many years ago?
8 years ago.
And he could start at 105, 112.
That's what,
Yeah, that's
like 105 sounds good in my mind. 100 doesn't sound bad. Somewhere in that.
Because we have to remember. it's
107.5. We just make Paul the
But I don't know.
superintendent and we'll be good.
Does the state offer guidance on starting?
Well, I guess the other thing is if we kind of come up with a ballpark in our mind, and if we talk to Brian Farmer, it's vastly different before we get the application packet, and he's like, if they say you're just not gonna get anybody apply for that, then, I mean, I think it's the understanding, and people would know that's the minimum. It's listed.
And that would be your, right out of your master's degree into the superintendent's position with no experience. Ooh, that would be,
Right.
and that's not what you want.
Right. And just to be also clear, we encourage internal and external candidates to apply. So we don't want to limit this, like we're going to search for people we've never heard of. So who knows who might or might not apply, but just as any job, we'll try to find the most qualified person for the district. Just, there may or may not be people apply that are in this district, and we're happy to have them apply if they want to apply. That's my general. I told Brian Farmer the same thing. I think we may have internal applicants, we may not, but we'll try to narrow it down to the best. Okay, back to the dollar amount. Anybody have any opinions?
110 sounds good.
It's got like a look, thought.
What are you thinking, Cassie? Because you're smiling and I don't know.
start giggling. Um,
Was it contagious from earlier?
So, I think 115 sounds good. I think just considering that that's where Dr. Copeland started, we had additional education. I did some quick math and assuming a 1.43 inflation factor per year, we'd be looking at 127. So that seems, you know, on the high end. So my gut is telling me like 115. But
I agree with Cassie.
And we guarantee that that person will work for a 1.03% rate.
Yes, Stephen? Oh, I'm not the boss, sorry.
I've actually been in my superintendent program and actually have been on some interviews, and about 115 on districts this size is Big Piney is about the same size. And that's what they were, what their starting salary was.
Yeah, you'll freeze to death up there.
It's a very similar size district,
Thank you for that feedback.
student wise, so forth. I mean, Sal, I can speak to that. And their starting salary was between 115 and 125.
No capture just.
Yes, they are.
again, I think like we want somebody that's super qualified. And so I think by setting that a little bit high, like, you know, like we want someone qualified. And so, you know, if we had an opening at 105, 110, or, you know, I just think that we're setting ourselves up for maybe better success. So I'm not opposed to setting it a little bit higher than keeping the doors open.
We have a pretty unique district. They have to do a lot of traveling from school to school. And, you know, that's a lot of time spent on the road, so.
I don't get 115.
So we need a motion. To advertise like that, or?
No. You can make a motion, I guess. I would run by Brian Farmer as well and see if they feel like it's in the ballpark.
But then,
So do we
but
need
then
it?
will we have to have a special meeting?
Right, I guess
to be
that's
able
it.
to set that
So
number?
if we, Bill, do we need a motion for that? If we want to include it in an application packet for a minimum salary for a
Yeah,
a public official.
and I guess you could even word your motion, not to exceed 115,000 based upon your discussion with this department. In case he advise you of something less.
Right, okay. That our advertised base would not exceed that. Doesn't mean our final one couldn't exceed that.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And that give you a little.
That give us some more. I think that's, don't know that it would, you know, but that's.
What if he tells you you have to pay more?
Then do we have to have a special meeting?
Yeah.
Well, we might have to finally, but to get applicants, I guess that's, do we have to?
What if he says on the application, like, don't put that, put 120?
Yeah, then we'll have to have a special meeting.
Sounds
Okay.
Oh, you want me to make the motion?
Yeah.
I think Cassie should make the motion. I can do it. I move to set the base salary for our superintendent search at 115,000,
Is not to exceed
or not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
Is that what we're saying? It's not, I'm sorry.
I thought this was a
I
minimum.
thought this was a minimum.
No, for
For the advertising.
the advertising. not
A
for the
minimum?
final.
Yeah.
We're setting our minimum for the
Very sorry.
advertising.
In case we get advice
wanna
that we should
go
go
lower.
lower, which we may not, so, but in case we get advice. I think.
Did you get that, Dana?
And that's to advertise, is that what you? Is that
So
the
the
motion?
motion is
Advertising.
proceed with advertising.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
think that was the main thing.
Do you want to read that back just so we make sure? You probably have to read it before we. Well, you have to do the advertisement, right?
Sure. Yeah, okay. Georgia moved. Karen seconded to, see, I have to kind of figure out what I wrote. To set the base salary for the
Minimum. Yeah.
or minimum salary not to exceed 115,000. And to proceed with advertising for the superintendent position.
Howard?
Doesn't mean we can't go higher, but that's for the advertising. Yeah. Okay, that was one of the main, I think, so to be able to move forward with an advertisement position, we need to do the characteristic survey. And then we had to have the base salary, and obviously we can get what our compensation package is as far as insurance and other stuff from Sally, but that's not something we have to decide on. And then get it listed basically by the end of this month.
It kind of says it in the application packet paragraph.
I think we'll use that.
Any other questions, thoughts, concerns regarding the superintendent search? Obviously, we can set the interview schedule and that, work with WSBA when we get closer, how that should look. They have an example over 3 days, whether that's what we need to really do or not. The one thing they stressed, and I'll reiterate, I mean, it's not, the whole board is the committee to work on this. I mean, we don't, wherever we can avoid having a committee on this, I think it's better that we all need to be involved, have an equal voice. Involve central office staff, involve building staff, administrators, some community members from each community. Have an opportunity to select who's best for our whole district.
Just if I might interject here, we're not meeting as a board, let's say when we go to the community meetings, but it's always good to go to that community meeting to see how the interaction between the community and the candidate is. They handle the questions. It's just to give us as a board a better picture of the complete candidate. And even, you know, when they're being interviewed by the faculty, just watching how people interact. And that would not be a board meeting because we're just there observing. Am I correct?
That's correct. I'll just read it. Assembly means communicating in person by means of telephone or electronic communication or by any other manner such that all participating members are able to communicate with each other contemporaneously. So if you guys are talking and communicating together, then it's a meeting. If you're just sitting there watching.
Okay, and I guess one thing that Joe mentioned before, you know, whenever we get into the reviewing the resumes, and then the interviewing, like, it's going to be a lot of time to commit. So just, you know, be aware. It's, you know, it's important thoughts there. Hopefully, it's something we only need to do every 8 or 10 years. But you never know. 8 seems good. Dr. Copeland, as a past applicant, anything to add? I know you wanted to kind of stay out of it, but also
Well,
we trust a lot of what you have to say too.
I mean, the process last time was, I thought, good. I think we had time with staffs and we had toured the camp, I mean, the district. In the public forum, mine was at the community center. I think they spread those around actually, parts of the district, depending on the candidate that Joe might remember better, because I only know what I was.
I think that the community was not just at the event center. We went to, I think we went to each town.
Mine was at the community center and everybody was invited to all of them, but mine was at the community center and it included everybody from anywhere in the district they wanted. I think the other candidates, one was up north and one was in Canton. If I remember from looking through that file.
I headed up the staff portion of it last time. So we spread them around at each and met with staff at each portion. I still got my notes on my drive that you need those for
Dana has a full
staff
folder
members. So
Oh, good, Dana.
from the last several searches.
So you didn't go to each community, you just went to this community?
My
Yeah.
schedule, is that right, Jeff?
yeah,
I was,
they did. They took them around to each community.
yes, and saw
But
each campus.
We
The
had,
forum was only at one spot.
you know, they had the forum at one spot, but they did throughout the day, went to each building.
It was snowing quite heavily and I didn't make it to Medicine Bow Rail Mountain
Yeah,
due to not being able to get back in time for the community forum.
because I think Deb took everybody around.
Yes, Deb was my driver and tour guide.
And Deb volunteered to do it again this time, if you want her to.
She was great, I tell you. She was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Any of you guys have anything to say about it before we move on? Superintendent search. Okay. Anybody else? I will get with Brian Farmer about getting that survey out and let him know where we're at. Obviously, you have a good chance to talk to him hopefully this week. Okay, board member comments. Nick. First.
Well, thanks to Encampment for hosting us. I good to be back in the schools. Once again, I'd like to thank all of our presenters. Nice to have the student involvement in this one. That was a cool deal, I think. I'd like to extend warmest congratulatory sentiments to our Saratoga track stars. So pretty cool what they accomplished. It's not easy. And they should all be very proud of that program, as should we. And then our student athletes that received sportsmanship letters. Should definitely recognize those. I'm glad we did that in the agenda. So, and then also a big thanks to all the generous donors, you know, that donate to the different programs through the district. That's incredibly generous.
I think the meeting today, just in general, has been so encouraging. I love coming to this school. Mrs. McClinsky, and I think Mr. Becca, I know Mrs. McClinsky usually presents, and I just love the enthusiasm here. I just love that they're always willing to take on new things and really support their students. But I think to Noel's report and the successes that teachers have had with Rachel Johnson and see how they've taken an initiative there as well was really encouraging. The financial audit was encouraging. I know there was the one little slap on the hand, but you know, thanks to Sally for all the work she does, and we credit her with our successes and all those great audits that we have year after year. I want to thank Breck with BOCES for the grant that she wrote to upgrade the lighting. I know sports are going to get hit hard, but just congratulations to all those sports teams. Yeah, thanks for the t-shirts. Oh yeah, and congratulations to Whitney Bennett for her all-state recognition. Yeah.
And
is there another one?
Hannah Lathrop.
Okay, I had not heard about Hannah, so yeah, that's really great, and I hope y'all have a great Thanksgiving.
Okay, I piggyback on this. Congrats to, number one, the football team to state, cross country, of course, winning state. And the volleyball team went to state, and plus all the other kids that work hard and all the way up from middle school as they aspire to get to state. I mean, that's the goal. And so congrats to all of them for all the work that they've done. I want to thank you to the encampment school, to the staff and the students for the welcome that I got, and plus I got to see some really good teachers, you know, doing some good things. And I always enjoy visiting the schools. I really, I'd like to say welcome to our new teachers. And, well, that's about it. And have a great Thanksgiving. And I hope we all travel safe up to the conference and back. And 'cause I think the weather is going to be better than it has been in the past. I remember some snowstorms up there. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for having us. I love being back in the school. I love seeing the kids. I love that the kids came today. It's my favorite part. This is my favorite part of this whole school board is the kids, and that's why we're here. And to have them here. I was very upset when they actually gave Encampment their own football team for selfish reasons, because I love them coming to Saratoga, because I got to see them all the time. But I'm so proud of what they have accomplished. And a lot of that is due to their coaches. And those to absolutely donate that kind of time, you don't realize the time they put in. And I'm glad that they got that funded. And that's why our cross-country team is phenomenal. It's because we have phenomenal athletes, but Rex is amazing with those kids and treats them like his own and loves them and takes care of them. And makes hours and hours and hour-long talks at banquets, which we have to endure, about how great our kids are. So, but we are very, very thankful for all that. We're thankful for all you do for our kids, and Sally, for your wonderful audits, always. They're always amazing and perfect, except for one little blip, but that wasn't you. And we're thankful for all the donors and everybody that supports the kids. And echo most everybody else's better stuff, but thank you.
Yeah, it's enjoyable hearing from the kids, and it's amazing that coming here and talking to us at the board can make some teenage kids just not be able to talk. Like they can giggle and the cross-country kids can't talk, and it's like they're just chatterboxes. You can barely ever get them to shut up, but it's just come here. Ms. Nicewinder said we're gonna have a door judging competition the week of the 13th of December.
Yes, so I'll be getting the information out to the staff probably next week for all the parameters, but across the district, we'll do another holiday door decorating like we did last year.
So if anybody wants to volunteer as a judge, it's a great time to see schools and see some of the stuff they've done. WSBA, I forgot a few things. Mike Mann is up for being the vice president of WSBA, and would love our support for that. The CCSD 2 is bringing like 3 people up, so it's usually good to catch up with them while we're there. Mr. Schweitzer and Mr. Greenwood, thanks for coming and sticking it out, and glad you're here. December is elections for board member positions. So I'll be thinking about that coming up next month. If there's something you want to nominate yourself for, have everybody nominate you for, that would be great. I'm willing to be chairman again, but you won't hurt my feelings if you nominate somebody else. A lot of fun watching Encampment High School championship game over there against my alma mater, and I did not cheer for Snicker, that's for sure. And I saw a lot of board members there, which is fun. It looked to me like the Encampment sideline was about twice as big as the back sideline when I looked at how spread out the people were. So that's pretty cool.
Well, there's usually nothing to say after everybody else has said something. I enjoy coming to Encampment. The enthusiasm of the kids and the staff it's just fun to watch. And the football team deserve full funding. You know, it's always worth more when you work for it instead of just giving it to you. So I think the kids and the coaches they knew that, I think, when they started this. So I do appreciate that. I do appreciate Sally's audit. It's always clean and nice. Paul and Rec Center kind of messed it up, but that's all right. I always like to thank Bill. He's just back in the corner all the time, but we do appreciate you, Bill. Keep us out of trouble.
Okay, Mike, you got a great school here. Your faculty is awesome. It's fun to come up here, other than the trader sitting over there on the second row. You know, most of your people are really, really good here. Congratulations to the cross country, the football. It was cool to see a lot of the board members. I think I sat below Nick there at the game. But man, you guys got to get some fire or something, man. It was just kind of.
I couldn't even really talk after the game was over. Come on, Paul.
Georgia was very loud.
Was
I
she?
sat above Georgia.
Well, I was across. But no, that was very cool to see. Thank you to all the donors, you know, what was it, 9,000, almost $10,000 in 1 month that was added, so almost has enough for a couple lanes of track. And then also sing out to the all your bus drivers, all your janitors, and you know the weather's getting bad. I seen a bus driver there with a load of junior high kids at the Clark's Corner, the Shirley Room Rest area. That poor woman, I mean, my God, she was a saint. So thank you to those people. And then also the family night, was it last week?
Yeah, last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday, we had a family night at HES, and thank God we fed them, because I don't think we've had that many people in that gym in a long time. So that was kind of cool. Your staff that fed us, fantastic, much appreciated. So tell them thank you for me.
Will do.
Well, a lot of things have been said. Again, congratulations to our athletes. Welcome new teachers. Congratulations to the WASA Sportsmanship Award winners. Thank you, Encampment, for hosting. Thanks. Make sure you thank Mrs. Munson and the students for the snacks. That was awesome. Thank you very much for the MTSS pilot program involvement. That sounds like a huge undertaking, and we really appreciate the extra mile that those teachers are going to. Any interaction and you know, trying to get those kids more help is always good. The parent involvement activities, Robin, I mean, that's awesome, and it's awesome that we've had record numbers, so that's great. Thank you again for doing the holiday door decorating, and the school newsletters. I really love them, so thank you for doing this.
Okay, thank you all. We have no executive session because we talked numbers out here in public, and I'm gonna excuse this meeting. The next regularly scheduled meeting will be Monday, December 20th, central office at 4 p.m.